Doom, knee-deep in the dead. Before the beginning, Kephiristan is about as close as you can come to hell on earth. I say that with authority. I've spent the last 18 months doing a tour here, trying to keep the Kephiri People's Liberation Army, who call themselves the Scythe of Glory, from the throats of the rightist chorististi, who have the backing of Azeri transplants from the south, who want to keep their enclaves, who are fighting a dirty war against communist Cuban and Peruvian Mirs. Geez, you get the picture. It's a snarled skein of a million bloody threads up here, on the top of the world, in the northern extension of the Karakoram Range, between Afghanistan and Samarkand, Uzbekistan. We just punched through the craggy pass pleasantly known as the Torn Hyman, in the local tongue, and come across the small, Muslim city of Pik Nizganij, perched on a mountain peak of 2,200 meters. I stared in horror. Even 18 months of picking up after the Scythe of Glory and their shining path buddies didn't prepare me for what was left of Pik Nizganij. It was a Bosch canvas, severed limbs and hollowed-out trunks, eaten out by animals, I prayed, planted through the fields like stalks of corn, blood painting doors and walls like the first Passover, except it was human blood, not lamb's blood. Corporal Flynn Taggart, Fox Company, 15th Light Drop Infantry Regiment, United States Marine Corps. 888-23-9912. Everyone calls me Fly, except when they're pissed. Fox crept through the town, hell-shocked, trying without much success to count body parts and make a reasonable K1A guess. Fog or an evil cloud rolled across the mountaintop, shrouding the sprightly red decoration and muffling our footsteps. It was like we walked along a cotton corridor, tripping over gruesome reminders that war, especially the virulent hatred of one tribe for another, throws men back into pre-bronze, pre-agricultural savagery. I wondered how many victims were killed by the victor's bare hands. Something moved in the mist. A shadow, a shape, nothing more. Gunnery Sergeant Goforth froze us with a slight hiss. Fox is damn well trained, even for the light drop. Gates stopped next to me. He touched my arm, silently pointing to left and right. I saw immediately. Whatever the shapes were, they surrounded us from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We might be able to retreat, but we couldn't flank. I watched the gunny. Arlene Sanders was whispering something in his ear. She was our scout, the lightest of the light drop. PFC Sanders could fade into the night so not even a werewolf could sniff her out. My best buddy. She might have been more, once we were buddies. We didn't talk about that night. Anyway, she had Dodd, and I don't separate bookends. Arlene backed away, back past me, throwing me a wink as she vanished. She would swing in a wide arc, ease around behind the still-moving shades, and report back to the lieutenant and gunny go forth via a secured line. I'd find out soon enough. I hadn't moved, and neither had the rest of us. I could barely hear Bill breathing next to me and couldn't hear Dodd or Shile at all. If we were lucky, maybe the dinks wouldn't even know we were here, they'd just pad right on by. Then Lieutenant Beelzebub came running up, demanding, "What the hell is going on?" in his normal speaking voice, an irritating whine. The lieutenant's name was Weems, actually. I just call him Beelzebub, because he's a fat, sweaty heathen always surrounded by a swarm of gnats. They like the taste of his perspiration. The dinks froze as suddenly as we had. No longer moving, they vanished into the swirling gray. We had just lost whatever surprise we had, lost our best chance to get out of this encounter without a shot fired, and all because a buffoon who had been a first lieutenant for 3 years now couldn't figure out it was a Medusa drill. One of them moved, then another. They moved singly, here and there, and we no longer had a clue where the mass of them was. Weems began to panic. We'd all seen it before. Aren't we going to take them out? He asked Goforth, who was frantically putting his finger to his lips. Somebody should take them out. Quote. Goforth put his hand to his ear. He was listening to Arlene's report, trying to stifle the lieutenant with his other hand. But Weems saw a ghost to his left, a specter to his right. We were surrounded. In Weems's mind, I use the term loosely, they were Indians, we were the 7th Cav, and he was Custer. The lieutenant isn't going to stand for this. Snapped the lieutenant. Go forth, take out those soldiers. The gunny broke his own drill. Sir, we don't even know who they are. Sanders says they're wearing robes and hoods. Scythe of glory, said Weems, again raising his voice. No sir, just robed men. Gunny, I gave you an order, now take down those men. Arlene flashed past me again. What the hell's going on? She hissed. Weems wants us to take 'em down. Fly, they're monks. You gotta stop the crazy son of a bitch. I was the second-ranking noncom, go forth would listen to me, I thought. I hunched over and jogged to the gunnery sergeant. Gunny, Arlene says there. Monks. Taggart, right, said Weems, as if bumping into me at an oyster shucking party. Sir, they're just monks. Quote, do you know that for sure? Does anyone know that for sure? Sanders said, Sanders said, Sanders said, does Sanders have to deal with Colonel Brinkle? Every week. Sir, began the gunny, I think we should recon the group before we open fire. Weems looked him in the face, shaking in fury. As long as I'm giving the orders here, Marine, you'll obey them. Now take down those men. Monks. Frickin' monks. I snapped. Maybe it was the bodies, or the body parts. The mountain air, thin. Oxygen. A gutful of Weems, Arlene's frightened, incredulous stare, the way. Goforth's jaw set and he turned to give the order, a 20-year man, he wasn't going to throw it away over a bunch of lousy religious dinks. But suddenly, it occurred to me that if Weems were lying face down in the deep muddy, he wouldn't be giving no orders. Then we could let the damned monks disappear, and nobody would be the loser. Excuse me, sir, I said, tapping the Louis on the shoulder. He turned, and I Georged him. Full body swing, came out of Orlando, where I grew up, picked up speed over Paris Island, hooked in at Keferistan, and turned off the lights of Mr. Lieutenant Weems in Pic Nizganij, alas, they only flickered. Power was restored. The dork didn't have a glass jaw, have to give him that. Weems sprawled messily in the mud, and a couple of the boys were on me. Like monkeys on a tree. Weems flopped for a bit like a giant spider, then he found his hands and knees. He glared at me for a moment, an evil smile cracking his face. Later, he said, then he turned back to go forth. That don't mean crap, gunnery sergeant. Now take down those men, or are you going to frag me? Instead, Goforth looked at me, looked at Weems, looked at the ground. Then he clicked his M92 to rock and roll and quietly said, Fox, take down those men. Quote, I closed my eyes, listening to powder hiss, bullets crack, the metal clang of receivers slamming back and home. The screams of the dying. The shouts of the victors. I smelled the smoke from the smokeless power, the primer, fresh blood. I'm in hell, I remember thinking, I'm in hell. We mopped up the enemy troops in record time. Strange thing, none of them shot back. Fact, no weapons were found, just 53 men ranging from pre-teen to 70 or 80, wearing brown robes and hoods, shaved heads, a couple carrying prayer sticks. The boys wouldn't get off my back. Weems wouldn't even walk around where I could see him, the murdering bastard, while he formally charged me, and I opted for a formal court-martial instead of captain's mast. Jesus and Mary, somebody should put a bullet in his brain. I could taste the trigger. I didn't know how I was ever going to be Shriven if I couldn't feel remorse.